Welcome back, everybody. Avengers Endgame is out now, and we're going to keep talking about spoilers, spoiler graphics. In this video, we're going to be talking about unanswered questions we have from Avengers Endgame, and there's quite a few. Joining me today, Hector Navarro, welcome back, host of LRA Nation, and Scott Mantz, one of my fave film critics. We're doing the high five again. Right. Unanswered questions, let's get into it. My number one leaving the theater was what happened to Gamora from the past that comes to the present.
Yes.
And then, does she get dusted? What's going on there? Because here's a question. Maybe you can answer this from your comic book knowledge. When Tony does the snap, does it have like a moral compass? Like, how did it know to dust the bad people?
That's my question.
That's a great question. There's been some great videos on the internet where some people have used science to theorize the original snap that Thanos even hit, because it's such a crazy thing to think about, but it is a very easy to understand idea. Half of all life in the universe will be, snuffed out in a nice dusty way. Some people have said, like, okay, well, the stones, what they do is they assign every life an either a 0 or 1, and all the zeros get done. Like, they've tried to math
place?
it. Yeah, like exactly. They've tried to use those logical rules to make it make sense. I know this is comic book logic, and it doesn't make sense, but I would imagine that everything that Tony Stark went through, including befriending some Guardians of the Galaxy in Infinity War, and then learning about what has happened, and then reflecting on it for 5 years, he probably has some awareness of Gamora, the other daughter of Thanos. He spent time with Nebula, right? So he probably knows about her. Was he thinking about her when he snapped it? Was he trying to save her? I don't think so. I think that what he set out to do was, I want Thanos and his army to disappear right now. I think that's what he did. And I think that means that the universe decided Gamora's probably not a part of that. Because we all know that she kind of isn't. And then in that final battle, she did rebel.
She has the moment.
She has the moment. She rebelled. So the end of the film showed Star-Lord searching for Gamora in his ship with the Asgardian of the Galaxy, Thor, conceivably setting up Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. But this is a Gamora from 2014 who never met Star-Lord, who never had those adventures in the 2 movies that we saw. So I think that she is around because we didn't see her specifically dust.
Yeah, and I looked for her the second time I saw it. I was like, where is she? Is she in the background? It's like, no, she's not there at all.
But that's a great question about, like, why did, when Thanos snapped his fingers, why did half the population, half the Avengers disappear? And when Iron Man snapped his fingers, all the bad guys.
I think he focused,
it's like just the telepathic, the way, the Infinity Stones work. Like, Downey, or, Tony Stark just said, I want to just get rid of all the bad guys. Boom.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think so.
Another question I had was, and you guys can chime in whatever questions you have, but what was up with Loki taking the Tesseract? I think we kind of talked about this in the last video, but I mean, we essentially think he's went to his Disney Plus show.
Yes, for sure.
Basically. Because that creates the way that Tilda Swinton explains it. It creates an alternate branch, right?
Yes, and the way that Mark Ruffalo
I go by actor names.
The way that the Hulk...
The way that the Hulk, tried to explain it was saying that just by their nature of going back in time, they were creating an alternate universe. We had Cap versus Cap fight. We had Iron Man or Ant-Man creating a little mini heart attack for Iron Man. That did not happen in 2012. So this is an alternate universe. The difference here is that when the stones were taken out of there, the Avengers promised to bring them back. So conceivably, they brought them back. The difference is again, that universe is a universe where Loki got away. And we don't know what happens after that. So right now, Loki has a Tesseract. It's 2012.
It really
but
is
that's what it is.
It really is like Back to the Future.
Yes,
because
or
by going back in time, you've now created. You've set the path for your own for a future that you want to be like the future that you know,
right?
But it's not going to be perfect. Just because Back to the Future, Marty went back to 1985. George McFly was like a stud, but that's because he interfered with his own.
Yeah, and Back to the Future rules, which I love that this movie called out as being bullshit. Was that Back to the Future is that Marty went back to his own past and just started changing things, and it kind of laid over itself.
Yeah.
Whereas the Avengers are as soon as they go back, boom, new branch. So they're affecting things in that branch. Their past still happened intact as they remember it, but now we're going to see what happens with the Disney Plus show.
This leads me into my next question, though. Then how did Cap go back
Great
in time?
question. I have a theory.
Okay.
One of two things
let me get it out, though, so our viewers will know what I'm talking about.
I'm sure people right now watching, they're like, yeah.
But so how did Cap go back in time, mess up Peggy's timeline, and then live his life, and then still show up on the same bench? Shouldn't he be in an alternate timeline?
One of two options. The first option.
He's so excited.
The first option, which I think is the option, but it might take a little bit of explaining, maybe they'll show it to us someday, is that Steve Rogers does in fact go back to an alternate timeline, gets married, and has a life with Peggy Carter, and then when he's an old man, still using his knowledge and the coordinates of where he originally left. Maybe he had his own little technology bracelet. We didn't see it, his little time travel thing. He uses that information to pop over to our current regular timeline. Why? Because he left it knowing there's no Captain America here, and I'm going to give my shield to Sam. Maybe in his Peggy Carter timeline, he still ended up meeting Sam, but he was an old man, and he's like, here's the shield. Maybe he was active as Captain America in the 50s, 60s, 70s. Maybe he ran for president. Maybe he made the world better. We don't know what happened, but that's an option. And I'm hoping that with Steve Rogers being as cool of a dude as he was, that when he goes back to the 50s, he really was like, I can make this place better. Like, I'm not going to put up with intolerance. Like, I'm going to go on marches. I'm going to help people. That would be cool. But I think that one option is he just popped over to our dimension, handed off the shield, and then maybe popped back.
Okay.
The second option is, which is kind of messed up.
He's got two. Wow.
The second option is Steve Rogers goes back in time with Mjolnir and the stones and conceivably puts everything back where it goes. Mjolnir in 2013, right, in Asgard, so that everything still happens. Thor the Dark World, go back and rewatch it. Puts the stones back where they belong, and makes it specifically so that he goes back further enough that it is our timeline. And when he goes to that timeline that we are already familiar with from Captain America the First Avenger, the Winter Soldier, the Agent Carter TV show, all we know is that at some point Peggy Carter gets married. She has a husband. She mentions that in that video that he saw at the Smithsonian in Winter Soldier, right? You know, she says, my husband was saved by Captain America in World War II. He was always changing my life even after he was gone. And then all we know about that Peggy is that in 2014, she's older, she's losing some of her memory, and young, hot Steve visits her, his best gal, and she's like, it's been so long. Like, she kind of loses it in that moment, and it was so tragic. What if Steve went back in time, married Peggy, and then he changed his name? He never had a picture of himself taken, and Peggy was in on it for decades, and it was, in fact, our timeline. And when Peggy said, my husband, she was referring to Steve, and she had to pretend as though she lost Steve. And then in 1970, when she's one of the directors of S.H.I.E.L.D., she has to pretend that she doesn't have a smoking hot husband at home. And everything happened exactly the way it happened up until 2014, where Peggy was being visited by young Steve. Older Steve is maybe still around, but he can't be there, because that's part of the agreement, is that he needed to make sure everything was going to be the way it was going to be. Maybe Peggy was even faking it. When Steve shows up and she's like, Steve, you're back. It's been so long. Because she has to keep up the thing of like, I never married Steve Rogers. So all of that could have happened. It could have been a secret. And that meant that old man Steve, after Peggy even died in 2016, right at the beginning of Captain America Civil War, Steve was still around for a couple years, holding on to that shield, seeing all the events of everything, Avengers and Iron Man and everything, and just waiting until 5 years from 2018, which is 2023, he goes to that park, sits on that bench, waits for them to do their time travel stuff. Then Sam walks up and he hands him the shield. So one of those two options.
Next question. Obviously, there won't be a new Tony Stark, but do you guys think there will be a new Iron Man? Do you think Pepper was a one and done? Do you think Morgan Stark will come up and do...
Well, first of all, we've seen different Iron Men,
in the
Iron People in the comics.
Iron People.
There was a storyline back in the 80s when Tony Stark was battling alcoholism and he was replaced.
Yeah.
So the sky's the limit with Captain America and with Iron Man.
Yeah.
I think those characters will continue, but they get to... Think about it. Think about how great this is for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that you get to continue with the brand awareness, and I don't mean that in a negative way.
It's a positive thing. It's a positive thing.
You get to continue on with an Iron Man film series, but have a different actor or actress playing Iron Man, and have a whole new set of adventures. You can have a whole new set of a trilogy of standalone films to lead into Phase 6 of the Avengers.
Who do you think it's going to be? Who do you think will be the first person we see, first character to be like the lead of an Iron Man centric movie?
That is.
Do you think it'll be the kid from Iron Man 3 that was at the funeral?
Harley Quinn.
By the way, Iron
Harley.
Man 3 is underrated. I love Iron Man 3.
I agree.
I think Iron Man. I love what they did with the Mandarin.
We still need to see the real Mandarin. And so this
That's
next
right.
Iron person
That's
should face off against
Kevin
the Mandarin.
Feige is a friggin' genius.
It's great. It's great.
But to answer your question,
Here's our
who
cake.
we
We're
see,
eating it too.
Who do you want to see?
Well, what are our options? We've got Rhodey.
Yeah.
Right?
Rhodey's not
as a
gonna
war
do it.
machine,
No.
because he's War Machine, right?
We've seen him. It's
Pepper
got to be
Potts?
somebody new. It's
As-
got to be
as-
somebody that
haven't
we've
seen yet?
that we've seen in the MCU,
But not
as
in
a
a suit.
primary character.
So there's not going to be Pepper, not going to be Rhodey. Is it going to be Tony's daughter, Morgan?
Maybe.
Could
Maybe.
it be a new character we haven't seen yet? Riri Williams. Again,
Possibly,
15-year-old,
yeah.
brilliant
'Cause if
young
you-
African-American
You know,
girl
if
at
you
MIT.
get
Because if you
builds
do
her own
Morgan, you got to do it way down the line.
suit. Right.
But
right.
also, if you go with your suggestion,
Yeah.
then you get to start from scratch.
Exactly.
And still stay
and those
in the
and those
MCU.
other characters will eventually still meet up with Riri. Like Happy Hogan can show up, Pepper Potts. Everybody can show up and be like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I'm Iron Man. We need an Iron Man. The world needs
same
an
thing
Iron
with
Man."
Steve Rogers or Captain America. Like he like that was a not very subtle passing of the torch.
Well, that's another thing I was wondering is like, will we ever call Sam Wilson Cap, or do you think we'll just continue to call him Falcon?
I think so. I think that when he in the
I
comic books,
didn't say it like in a mean way. I was like, I just at this moment am like,
Falcon.
that is Falcon.
Well, for a long time, Steve Rogers was Cap, but now moving forward, as Sam Wilson earns the shield,
correct,
he will be Cap,
Which
and
to
people
Steve,
will call him Cap,
right? To Steve,
and that's gonna be a moment.
Yes,
when
it
someone
will.
says,
"Call it Cap."
You got it.
Yeah, Cap.
Cap.
It's
Right?
true. It's going to be great. It's a moment of Sam Wilson as a character's comic book history. He was Captain America for many years, and he was called Cap, and he did earn it, and all of that still happened. The cool thing is when he was Captain America, he got to keep his wings. So he was like a falcon with a shield. Like it was like a red, white, and blue motif. Like it was really, really cool. So in the same way that I hope that someday we'll get She-Hulk, I hope we get Jennifer Walters and different versions of Hulk, maybe Red Hulk, maybe A-Bomb, but
I want to see
especially...
Black Cat.
What's that?
I want to see the Black Cat.
Black Cat
The
from
Black
Spider-Man?
Cat from Spectacular Spider-Man.
Oh, okay.
I want to see the Black Cat.
That might be. I think usually Peter
The way
meets her
Al
in like
Milgrom
college years.
and
Okay.
Jim Mooney drew drew the Black Cat.
Yeah.
Felicia Hardy back
Yeah.
in the late '80s.
Yeah.
That was the way to go.
All right.
I
okay.
was hoping Monica Rambeau, who's like, what,
Yes.
it's been 25
Our
years
age.
or something?
She's
yeah.
our age now, yeah.
I was hoping she would pop up at some point.
Here's my Star Trek reference. I'm hoping that when we do see a grown-up Monica,
Yeah.
and she's either Photon or Pulsar or her own Captain Marvel version of the character, like the comic books, that we get great Star Trek actress Sonequa Martin Green could play her. I think that she would be perfect.
She would be amazing.
She would be amazing.
She would be amazing.
Kevin, I know. Come on, Kevin. I know you're a Trekkie. Feige, come on, bud.
Martin Green.
Right? You'd be
She would
amazing.
be
I
amazing.
am all in.
Absolutely.
I am all in, my
She's
friend.
a phenomenal
Yep.
actor, and I think that
She's been
yeah.
like fan cast a lot for that
sure.
role
Yeah,
too.
for
I've
sure.
seen that a
For
lot.
sure.
Yeah.
Dead, Star Trek,
People
yeah,
love
for
her.
sure.
Even Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, who's a character we've only recently been introduced to, right? They've retroactively gone back and said she's been around since 1995 is when she was first active as Captain Marvel, and she could have either been visiting Earth or at least up until 2018 during the events of Infinity War. She came back to Earth, saw that Fury was missing, but then she's kind of been bouncing back and forth, which is just so exciting for story possibilities. And if and when we get a Captain Marvel 2, not only will hopefully we see a grown-up Monica, but we also have to introduce a character of Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan. A very popular superhero character, a young girl who grows up idolizing Captain Marvel. Like we need to plant those seeds.
Yeah.
Of having that little girl growing up in a world of sure with all these superheroes, but specifically she's looking up to Carol, and then when she gets powers and becomes Miss Marvel, it's awesome.
Another timeline question I have.
Yeah.
It has to do with Peter Parker.
Yes.
Maybe it'll be explained in Far From Home, but everybody who got snapped, right? Like, they come back and they're the exact same age.
Correct. They did not age 5 years.
So when he goes back to school, are
Yeah.
like half his classmates like 5 years older and off in college?
Wait a
and
minute. That's a great question,
Yeah.
Ash.
Because like
when Peter Parker went back to school, Ned Leeds was still in the same grade.
Maybe. So that means
maybe-
either Ned was snapped also.
yeah,
And,
I assume
and
that
many,
meant Ned
many,
was.
Oh,
many of
okay.
his
I see what
schoolmates
you're
were
saying.
also snapped, so they're essentially stuck and frozen in time. Or here's another option, and this is why I think it was really, really smart to announce Spider-Man Far From Home as being really the end of Phase 3. When that was first announced, people were like, what? That doesn't make... It should be the Infinity Saga ending with Endgame. That doesn't make any sense. But then you watch Endgame, and there's all these questions about, like, the logistics of the snap. So it's going to be Spider-Man that kind of explains, like, the sort of regular person, like, reaction to everything.
Yeah.
I think Far From Home is actually going to take place after Endgame.
Yes, and I think it will explain how people are coping and what they're dealing with. And let's say, for example, that Peter Parker was snapped, so he's gone for 5 years, from 2018 until 2023. Then we rejoin him and his classmates in 2023. But let's say Ned was also not snapped. But again, we saw a little bit of how the world was shattered by half of everybody disappearing, right? Just everything. Like governments kind of weren't working to full capacity. I imagine maybe schools weren't either, possibly.
I
So
was
let's say,
when they showed like the apocalyptic ships and stuff. I was like, they haven't cleaned this up yet.
No, who's going to do? Everyone's surviving, right? Pepper Potts is reading a book on composting. Like, it was dire. So maybe if Ned, even though he wasn't snapped, but he's still around, maybe
But
he
why-
can't just
why-
go back to school and just kind of keep progressing in grades. Maybe he's kind of like got some version of the GED, and they're kind of waiting around. They're like, well, maybe our superheroes will undo this,
If
and then it
that's
just
the
kept
case,
going. And then
why don't we see the Iron Spider outfit in any of the footage for Spider-Man Far From Home?
because that was a special going off of the planet suit that Tony Stark gave him. When he goes back to his neighborhood, he's wearing his regular suit. But even in one of the trailers for Far From Home, he knows he's going on a little vacay to Europe. He leaves his suit behind. It is until he shows up in Europe. Nick Fury's there. I think that's when he gets a cool black and red stealthy suit.
I see. Gotcha.
I
And
think
didn't
that's how it happens.
wasn't there a shot where if Aunt May leaves a note that's like, you forgot this at home or something like that?
Oh, with his suit? Possibly.
Yeah. Did I
think
make that
so.
up? Did I
no.
dream that? I
Maybe
think
you
it's in a
wrote it.
trailer.
Did you write that movie?
Maybe.
That's cool.
Maybe.
I want to see it. But anyway, I hope that, and I'm looking forward to this movie answering at least some of those questions without really trying to break the logic of the story. Obviously, let's just see a Spider-Man story. That's what's most important. But the fans kind of do want some of those questions answered, and I think we might get some of them answered.
Another question I have, I think it's pretty obvious, but Thor is with the Guardians, so...
There you go. Guardians of the
Is
Galaxy
that Guardians?
Volume 3.
Is that Volume
Yep,
3 right there?
For sure. Yeah.
I have
That's
to-
Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah,
it's
it's right.
The
Perfect.
title
It's in the
says it
title.
all.
It should be the title.
It should, and there's been even a comic named that. I was worried when I watched that moment that maybe the filmmakers decided to do that last second because the issue with James Gunn had happened.
That was my
And I was
thought.
like, is this their way to get Taika on board to basically go and direct Guardians Volume 3, which is a franchise that is so near and dear to James Gunn's heart that maybe Marvel Studios was like, well, what if we just put Hemsworth on the ship? Would Taika then want to maybe talk about? But I'm really hoping that when James Gunn was fired, that Kevin Feige kind of pulled out all the stops and was like, we're just going to not even put this film into production, even though we have the script. It's so important to James. Let's wait until this stuff maybe kind of blows over. Let's reassess. Let's rethink it. And hopefully the news of James Gunn going and directing another superhero movie with their competing studio helped everybody to kind of reflect and figure out.
That'll do it.
That'll do it. So in any case, I'm just glad that James Gunn is coming back, and it seems like everybody, the cast, everybody, they're super stoked about it. But I'm also really glad that Hemsworth continues to play this character.
Well, that last scene with them trying to figure out who's the boss, essentially, that was one of my favorite scenes in the entire
And it was
movie.
at the end of a 3-hour movie.
Yeah.
And we were all like, let's keep going. I can keep watching more of
Yeah,
this.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
So great.
It was so good.
Yeah.
This one has been explained, but it's been coming up a lot, and a lot of people have
Yeah.
asked me, who's the kid at Tony's funeral?
The grown-up Harley Keener. We first met him in Iron Man 3, which is underrated. I agree with Scott Mantz.
Yes. Underrated.
Underrated.
Underrated movie. It's better
And-
than Iron Man 2.
Yes.
But it's the thing of the
different.
It's different. Here's the thing. So Iron Man 3 took chances, and that was Shane Black. The twist in that movie, what he did with the Mandarin, played by Oscar winner
Sir Ben Kingsley.
Ben
It's
Kingsley.
complicated, right? It's complicated.
Hey, it's complicated,
It
right?
is.
It's complicated.
That was so unexpected, and I understand why fans went crazy for
I
it.
don't.
But because as much as I love Spider-Man, if they
Yeah.
did something like that with the Green Goblin, I
Sure.
would have been pissed.
That's true, but Spidey doesn't usually face off with a bunch of racist caricatures from the 60s. So I think it was a kind of a smart,
But for
yeah.
the sake of a movie,
Yes.
to do something different, the way they showed that the Iron Man suit wasn't working. I mean, the movie was more about Tony Stark than it was about Iron Man, at least
Yeah.
until the very end.
Yeah. And Harley was a great addition to that film. It's
Absolutely.
It's not usual. It's not typical that I think that.
And he reminds me a little bit of Peter Parker.
Yes, totally.
Infinity War.
We can
Yep.
start to see Tony Stark's sort of frame of mind with that, and the way that he is with
He's a type.
with Harley is kind of the same way that he is with his daughter.
Yeah.
When he tells when Harley's like, "My dad left," and he goes, "That's too bad, so sad," and drives away. He's ribbing with the kid. He does the same thing with his daughter. Go to sleep, or I'm going to sell your toys. And she smiles and leans over. That's the beginning of that. And Harley Keener. It's not often that kid actors and big movie franchises like this that are sort of inserted are cool and funny and beloved. But this is a movie that I have never at once heard somebody complain, "Oh, I didn't like the kid and I ruined the kid."
Oh, yeah, the
no,
kid, for
he was
once,
fantastic.
The kid didn't ruin it.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly, which is a common thing, especially from comic book fans. So Harley Keener, and I feel like this funeral scene should just make everybody go back and rewatch every single movie in the MCU. That's what should happen.
100%.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any, wrapping it up, do you guys have any unanswered questions?
When Captain America took the Soul Stone back, did he meet Red Skull again?
That was, that's a great question.
Did Red Skull apologize for being a Nazi?
That's-
Was he I am so sorry, Captain Steve, son of Edith. You you beat me up in World War II, and I have learned my lesson. I'm sorry for being a racist Nazi. I don't know. What happened?
I don't know. That's a great question.
Yeah.
I also had questions about when Tony gets the stones from
Yeah.
Thanos.
Yeah.
how the hell did he do that?
He
Because-
sleight of
Wrapped
hand.
in-
yeah, but they were
You see, remember in Ant-Man and the Wasp when Scott Lang learned close-up magic? He taught that to Tony Stark.
But early on in the movie, they're really
Yeah, yeah.
intricately putting in the glove, they're all about to
He
explode. And then
programmed
in
a
this
thing
one,
into
he's
his
just
suit to be like magnets. He was like, watch, look, if I go like this, I got your ring.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't actually have it. I don't
That's what I was
actually.
looking at.
Whoa!
That was a great. By the way, that was a great moment when
epic.
Thanos goes like this and he turns it over and
From
the
this
stones
side.
are going.
And it's gone, yeah.
And he goes.
Yeah.
He says, "I am inevitable," and then Tony
I
Stark says, "I am
Iron Man. And then I'm like, oh no. Oh no.
Tears.
Okay, guys. Well, we could talk about this movie for 10 more hours.
So let's do
but
it.
Let's do
Let's
it.
do
Okay.
it. I hope you guys are ready to
going.
stick around.
Got
No,
the
we're going to wrap
cameras.
it up. Thank you guys so much for being here.
you.
Hector, where can we see your work?
You can follow me on the internet at Hector is Funny and check me out on El Rey Nation every Thursday night at 10:30. Check your local listings on the El Rey Network.
You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Movie Mantz, and you can catch all my reviews on my website at moviemantz.com.
And I'm at Ash Crossan, and you can find me right here. This is my house.